So please let us know if you have any intention of starting to onboard some services. We'll give you the manuals and we'll help you do the work. Until we have a procedure that is much better and that will allow you better to do it by yourself.
Yeah, okay. Can I add?
Oh,
can I add something here? Yeah, thank you. Just adding on the top of what you said, Kenrick and Bill, just to give you a sense of immediate outcome from your work and how important it is, and I would like to tell the entire group about it, especially those that are joining us in the second round now. We already had team members from the awarded teams from the second round relying on your risk assessment final report to reach us and asking questions about the onboarding process. So it's not, of course, that it's complex, it's sometimes difficult to understand, but it's always important to document the process as you did very well. And this outcome shows how was good the work that you did, right? So that's the kind of report that we are aiming for. Those reports that are going to bring benefits to the ecosystem. So thank you for that.
All right, just making one more note for myself so I don't forget it. What I'm going to tell you later on. So I took the opportunity during your presentation to organize myself also a little bit better and to create a small presentation with all the things that I wanted to tell. Let me start by sharing my screen. Where is it? So let's start with the results. Actually, there is one more thing I would like to show. One moment, I'll stop sharing for one moment. I just remember there's another. Let's see. You know, Raphael, the sheet where I created the versions of the refunding round 2. I think it is this one. Yes. Okay, so let's start with this. Okay, sorry for that. So I'm still analyzing stuff a little bit to have a good understanding what went wrong and what went right, because it's not just about getting the results out, it's also about assessing the process, see what went well and see where we can improve, and there's always things to improve. So those that paid attention, which is all of you of course, will already have seen this sheet, I think. So we published a blog on the results, and in that blog we added a link to this results sheet. So this is available to everybody, and it has been available for a week or so since the results were out. So what you see here are the results per pool and the teams that were awarded. So 17 in total. And you see how we did it. So we started here with $250,000. But there was some left in this pool, which we added to the other pool. There was 42.5 pool left in pool B. So in pool these 4 projects were awarded. Integration of mainstream open source AIs. We do have Eric, here, I think. This was your project, so we're very happy that you were awarded. Sybil from Kevin was awarded. Automated hugging face from Subir and the Zero to AI people was awarded. That's a very interesting one, also related to the topic we were just talking about. So I think it's unbelievably cool that it's not just us working on the platform and working on the improvements, but it's also other teams trying to do that. And Zero to AI are positioning them as a kind of middleman in different ecosystems, being Hugging Face, but also being Ocean Protocol and being SingularityNET, and trying to make sharing of data and processes much easier. And I think they're doing a great job, and it's very promising what they're doing. And then, of course, connecting SingularityNET to Data Union app is also related to onboarding data, also a little bit loosely related to Ocean Protocol. So these are 4 very high quality and also rather technical projects that have been awarded. So that's an interesting observation, and also some projects with quite substantial budgets. But as you can see, a lot of Pool A projects had quite a substantial budgets. And yeah, of course, they couldn't all win. We have some very cool, very good runner-ups here. Maybe in a different scenario where we had a little bit more budget, these would have been awarded as well. Now, regarding Pool B, we can talk a little bit later about the pools. Yeah, the amounts were smaller. I had a little bit more hopes about Pool B. I hoped it would be fuller. I hoped there would be more. We can talk a little bit later about that. But still, some very interesting projects there as well. Won't go over all of them in detail. Pool C, only 1 project got awarded, and that is a little bit strange, because the feedback that I got during the deep funding round was mostly very positive. People liked to have that pool. They thought it was a good idea, and I was also getting increasingly convinced this was a good idea. It was actually also suggested by the community in deep funding round 2, governance round 1. So that's the background. But strangely enough, the average grade of these projects was quite low. So there was only 1 that scored beyond, above the threshold that we put in advanced of 6.5. So that's a pity. And yeah, maybe we can think together what the reason is and how we can improve that next time. Then Pool D was our marketing pool. I think it was very interesting experiment. 4 projects got awarded. The grades do have quite a range from 4.2 till 7. Probably there's some room for improvement there as well. What I notice is that a lot of local oriented projects didn't make it. So we want to improve the visibility of SingularityNET in Vietnam or something. Apparently that appeals less to our community than having something broader. But that is my first analysis here. And then Pool E, not that many, but I would say the quality is quite good. Of course, as I mentioned, I am happy with the community contribution scores, because not only will that help me and Raphael do our work better, but it will also bring more clarity and transparency to the whole process. A technical assignment about machine learning, Jupyter Notebook and Cardano, and an agreement building platform, which is like an existing product, I think, that we can use for community definition, crowd-based creation of documents, basically. So that might come in very handy. So this is the general result, the general outlook. Personally, yeah, there are always, I won't name them right now, because when I start naming projects that I think should have, that I would like to have seen awarded as well, then yeah, I have to draw the border somewhere, which is impossible. But obviously there are some good projects there as well, which didn't make it. So sorry for those, and I hope you have a new opportunity next time. But these are the projects that we'll be seeing a lot about. By the way, maybe this is a good moment also to show you, for those that haven't seen it already, the new website. This is not what I wanted to show. So we have open proposals. It still opens at open proposals, but there are no open proposals because the round has finished. So that will be filled again with round 3. But if we go to awarded projects, you will now see round 1 and round 2. So if you filter on round 2, you only see the projects awarded in this round. You can filter them further if you want by the pool. So, and what's more, instead of linking you to Sway, we brought all the information on these projects in our own platform. So you can see everything here. Here is where you see all the details about projects that they themselves created on our proposal portal, but we basically copied it here. You will also see a good overview of the milestones that the teams have created. And you see the team members that are related. This is purely random projects that I chose, but familiar faces. And I have to thank Raphael for the hard work of copying all this data in, because we are not completely integrated as much as we would like to be with our portal. So at this stage, there is still manual work to be done. And with that manual work, there's also always an opportunity of errors creeping in. And we actually have 1 or 2 situations like that in this round. But we hope we can improve that in the future, or we are actually determined to improve that in the future by integrating these 2 systems better. So that is about this part of the new website. And while I'm at it, I thought I was going to do it at the last moment, but yeah, we also have a new updates hub. This is not completely live yet. It's not linked yet to the menu. But here you will see all news and announcement, and that will also give us better visibility on everything done in Deep Funding. So you will see all the latest blogs here, and of course you can go to all blogs, but also the awarded project updates. So Bill and Kenrick, the presentation you just did will be recorded. We will add it to your project page. In this case, it's a little bit tricky because it's about multiple projects, so I'm not sure how we will solve that. I'll leave that to Raphael, I think. But we will add that to your own detail page in principle. But and so anybody who's interested in your detail page will see all. Actually, I'll show it. Maybe this is a good opportunity to do that. If I go to awarded projects and now in round 1, so here we see all the project updates, all the previous presentations that you guys did, and of which I'm very grateful. You did a lot of progress presentations, and they can also all be found back here. The date here is not completely right because we moved all the old content to our new dedicated Deep Funding channel. So that's the reason for that. But people who are interested in VOTRAC or in this specific project can go here and they see vertically in depth everything that's going on. While people that just want to have an overview of everything happening this week or the last 2 weeks will see all the latest presentations here. And we'll continue to keep that up to date. Proposal presentations, yeah, we are past that stage for round 2. And then finally, governance. Oh no, not finally, governance updates. So I can imagine this session about deep funding, especially if we start talking about pools and processes, etc., will also be taken apart and will have its place here. So if you're interested about all discussions on processes around deep funding, you will be able to keep track of that here. And then the town hall recordings. So also the complete town hall recordings, we'll put everything in one playlist on our Deep Funding website. And here you will always see the latest versions. And then you can go to the View All button and see everything. So didn't really plan to show this, but I think it's really cool what we're doing with the website, and there will be more to come. But we're really trying to build out our website to a real community platform where you can find everything around deep funding and everything around the teams and the projects that make this possible. Back to the results. So what I did, and that is what this sheet is about. I was wondering by myself, we have these processes now where we do quadratic voting, and we have processes where we make reputation part of the voting process by giving voters with a high reputation a higher weight in their voting. So what would happen, and we did that, right? So we created quadratic voting, meaning that we took the square root of the total balance in AGIX of every voter and used that as their voting weight. And the next thing we did is for those voting wallets that we could connect, could relate to a wallet on our portal proposal, proposal portal, sorry. We gave those with the highest reputation a higher weight, and the higher the reputation is, the higher the weight is. I can show you here the variables. So we created.
Can I ask what your column default meant?
Sorry?
You had one, the first column was called default. What is that?
Oh yeah, that is the, at least I'm not sure. So I was playing around a little bit with the, oh, wait a minute. This should be, oh yeah, this is the original outcome. So this is the real outcome. And what I did here is create the same outcome, but still using reputation, but not using quadratic voting. And here I didn't use quadratic voting and I didn't use reputation.
I see, okay.
And here I did use quadratic voting, but no reputation. And here I just did one wallet, one person, basically. If everybody would have one wallet, one vote. And then I compared the scores a little bit. But there are two things important here. And maybe I should go to this slide first. So I don't want to bash you with all kinds of numbers. I'll probably write yeah, you probably like it, Kenrick, but maybe not all of us. Here are some rough stats, and I just calculated this before the call. So, and it's actually trickier than you think. So, when we published the amount of wallets that were participating before, I took all the wallets that were available in the linking tool. Because underwater, when you vote, we put that also on our wallet linking tool, but just then with a collection of one. So our linking tool enables you to connect multiple wallets to make it easier for you to vote with multiple wallets that all have some AGIX balance. But of course, you can also vote with one wallet, but underwater, we still add that to the collection. So we have a collection ID, so we have one place where all votes are collected. But this also had content on our previous Rejuve exercise. We used the wallet linking tool for that as well. So there were more wallets there than wallets that were actually involved in the voting process, which is something that I overlooked at first or wasn't quite clear to me, to be honest. Now, if we look what really happened is that votes cast means a project that has a grade. So we have 57 projects. So one person voting for every project would give you 57 votes. And 17, I think six questions, if I'm not mistaken, Peter, on the loyalty vote.
7, but yeah.
7, okay, yeah. All right. So for loyalty, in total, 786 votes were cast, and they came from 146 wallets. But there are also a number of wallets that participated in the voting process, but appear to have 0 AGIX on their linked wallets. And actually more than I expected, to be honest. So we have looked into it, but we can't find anything wrong with the data. So yeah, probably one of these things. So if we count those out, the wallets with 0 AGIX, then it would leave 135 wallets. And if we go to deep funding, we see in total, of course, there were more questions on deep funding than on loyalty. So it makes sense that there were also more votes cast. And 144 wallets. But if you discount the wallets with 0 AGIX, which is about 10% of them, which is more than I would have expected. I would have expected maybe 1 or 2 or 3%. 10 is a little bit too much for my taste, but yeah, let's think about if there's any way we can improve that. Maybe by better communication. And in the end, then it was there were 127 wallets with more than one AGIX or more that voted. So this is not extremely impressive from a quantitative side. I wouldn't say, I don't have it on top of mind how many voted last round. I'm not sure actually if I did the analysis back then with wallets with 0 counts, but I don't think we grew, at least. Maybe it was even a little bit down.
It does seem like it does make you wonder if something went wrong.
Yeah.
If that many people voting with wallets that don't have AGIX. That's weird, right? I can imagine, like I said, I can imagine a few people doing that, but
yeah,
so many, like 90% of the votes were not valid because they didn't have AGIX.
Yeah, it may be that people who were previously engaged with Rejuve and maybe had Rejuve tokens or as DAO tokens or whatever were then familiar with the linking tool and engaged in the voting process, thinking that they could just vote. And not knowing that they needed to have AGIX. That's the only reasonable explanation I can think of right now, which would require better communication on that you indeed need AGIX.
Okay, I could also see maybe what you're saying is if given that people have the ability to link multiple wallets, then maybe some of the wallets had actual coins in it, and some of the wallets they linked didn't.
Yeah. And that's perfectly fine. That's no problem. But what you see here, I say wallets, but
These are the combined wallets?
No, wait. These are not, actually what I should have called them here are collection IDs. So these are collections, often of multiple wallets, and sometimes 5 wallets, whatever. So the actual number of wallets, so that is also, it's a good point. Because suppose that in the previous round we had 150 wallets, and now we have 127 collection IDs. It could be that there are still more wallets engaged than the previous round. That would call for some further analysis to see the overlap in wallets between the previous round. I haven't gotten to that yet, but if there are any volunteers, then I'm open to that.
And can we quickly go through some raised hands? Joanna had her hands up, and Pete as well.
Yeah, sure. So I want about the stats. I would like to make one more point, and this is really a little bit disappointing to me. I mean, I'm very happy with how Deep Funding Round 2 went. I'm very happy with the outcome, but this is actually the only thing that I'm really a little bit disappointed about. There are 276 people active on our proposal portal, and 71 of them had a reputation score which is more than 0, and that is based on a tiered system where we have 6 tiers, and if you just do very little on the proposal on the portal and mainly watch or whatever, and just have a few comments, you will get in that 0 part. But I would expect most people that have a reputation score that are engaged in the proposal portal also to vote. So I would have expected from these 71, maybe 45 or 50 to have voted as well, and perhaps even more. But surprisingly, I could find only 6. So, and that was the reason why I showed you those columns in that spreadsheet before. You saw that the impact of reputation, or you can see if you drill down more carefully, that the impact of reputation was very low in the total outcome. Whereas in the previous governance round, it was actually more impactful. And yeah, this is the reason, because a lot of that reputation that was gained was not validated or used in the voting. And I am actually looking at a few things where I can track it down, where I know the people who voted and have reputation, and I have asked them what the reason is, and yeah, the reasons are different. Some did indeed not vote, and others voted with another wallet which was not related to the proposal. So I think we can win a lot here by also making that integration better somehow. So that is an important insight that I want to give you. As you can see, I'm completely transparent with these numbers. I think it's important that we all understand what is happening. We can all learn from it. Yeah, and this is what happened. And Felix, you said some people had their hands up and you want to stop me talking, I think. I promised an interaction session, but not that good at it, I'm afraid.
I know Kenrick, he's very outspoken here. Lots of other people feel maybe a little bit more careful.
Oh, well.
So I saw Joanna have her hands up, Pete as well. So maybe first Joanna, then Pete, and then Marvel.
Oh, okay. Joanna.
Hey, Anne, how are you? I'm actually just looking into the sheets. I was going to try to figure out myself. But for those people that have 0 AGIX but still voted, and I apologize if I should know this, but if they have a reputation score, does that count into the voting weight? Or is it like a multiplication, or is it added to the quadratic vote?
Well, if they, it is a multiplication, but if you multiply anything by 0, then the outcome is still
Yeah,
0.
so wondering if it was an addition or a multiplication, but okay, that makes sense.
But what I did do is one wallet, one vote. And in this column, I actually also counted the wallets with 0 votes, just to see what would happen. And yeah, in that case, you don't see anything, you don't see completely different results. So that is a little bit, I don't know the word for it. Damn
That's
it.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that I'm not sure that this would have pivoted the whole outcome or anything. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't. But for the reputation, I don't know, because there's no way to see what would have happened, because I don't know how to interlink that, if it were people with high balances or low balances that had that reputation. So that feels a little bit like a missed opportunity. And I hope we can improve that next time.
So I do see, well, excuse me, I'll raise my hand.
Who's next? Felix, you know who's next.
I'll take a turn.
It's Pete, then Mauro, then Curtis, and Kenrick.
Just a small note on these wallets with 0 AGIX. The way we snapshotted was at the very end of the voting period. So potentially this could be explained by people voting and then moving the tokens onto a different wallet, thereby having 0 at the...
Yeah. It was actually done at 1 minute past the time. So it's not that we took 2 days of time and people were long gone. We did it immediately after the closing of the round. That was also communicated. But indeed, Peter, that could be a good... you know, in the previous round, people had to keep their amounts for the whole round, I think, if I remember correctly. So I would expect people that are voting now also to... I can imagine that they would keep it the whole time, but yeah, to remove it after you vote, yeah, but it's possible. It's possible. Who's next?
Really?
I think it's me. Hey guys, how are you? First of all, I think that we are doing an excellent job here. And this is a super cool problem to have. The ecosystem works a lot. Some is deep funding #1. And that shows my point and the point that everyone here to improve communication and marketing. One option anyone wants to participate in the marketing guild with the ambassadors, with Felix and the team. But that shows me that we need to improve the communication, try to reach the community with this kind of info. And in my opinion, it's a super cool problem to have, because we could possibly have the solution right now. And we are going to try to improve those numbers to the next pound. And I really think that the proposals were founded in Pool D, we can improve those numbers. And that we have now know that there is a kind of problem and we could solve it. So really, really interesting.
Thank you, Mauro. And by the way, congratulations with your winning proposal. Yeah, we're here to learn. We're here to learn, and there's still opportunity to learn. So I think there were no accidents with quadratic voting. So from what I can see right now, I don't see huge wallet splitting. Well, I'll show you through that also, but I'll first give the others also their point. Going forward, I think it's really important that we find a way to connect as much as people with a reputation score to the voting, because the whole idea behind that is that, or one of the ideas behind that is that we will also disincentivize wallet splitting by making people with reputation more important. I think Curtis right now, or?
Yes.
Curtis.
Thank you. Is it possible to scroll down on this tab and see Pool C possibly?
Yes.
I was just curious if, because I feel like this does express some observations that Pool C are ideation phase, and that Pool A and B are potential platform users, like they're already utilizing in the SNET platform, so they have wallets with their majority of their AGIX tokens, whereas Pool C is trying to introduce this network and this ecosystem to those proposers. Should that be addressed differently? I mean, yes, they do have less AGIX. That's obvious here. But maybe it's because they're not currently platform users. And are we trying to encourage them to become platform users or be stakeholders? Or what is the intended responsibility of a proposer?
Well, what are you saying? Are you saying that these projects scored low because the people in these projects don't have AGIX and therefore don't vote on their own projects? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I think there's some value in that. A lot of these voters are the proposers themselves, and majority of the weight, maybe, from this vote is the proposers themselves voting on others as well. And if Pool C is collectively a lot less AGIX holders than Pool A and Pool B, is there a disadvantage there, or am I even just kind of making up assumptions?
Could I try to answer that? Because it also leads into my question. If it's okay, I'll give some thoughts on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think you raised some interesting points, Curtis. And one thing I would say, maybe something learned about Pool C is that because these are research projects and necessarily more risky, that maybe the scale does need to be changed for the threshold, because these projects, in a sense, may never rise to the quality of a bigger project that's more focused on delivering a near-term service. So maybe just the way people are voting is different in this category. That's one maybe issue to look at. And then Curtis raises an interesting issue about people voting for their own projects. That's possible, but that's part of what the quadratic voting is supposed to protect against. And if you go back to Pool A, I see you highlighted one case where without the quadratic voting, they got a very high one. And that was a project asking for 150,000. And then I look down and the other large request for 170,000 also has the same large differential between quadratic voting, removing quadratic voting. So this kind of issue has been a big problem with the Cardano Catalyst program. There are specific examples of people asking for the entire pool funds, and then questions being raised about whether it was, kind of self-dealing. And so, the fact that you have some evidence here of filtering out potential self-dealing where maybe people proposed large amounts because they knew they had a lot of coins and thought they could game the system. I don't know. It's worth looking into more. But I think it's a very interesting outcome of exactly which, it's not just the fact that you filtered a particular project. It's the fact that that project asked for a lot of money compared to the other projects.
Very good observation. That's indeed why I highlighted it. Another observation, and I had some statistics, but I think I deleted them prior to this call, is about the teams, about extreme voting. What we saw in round one is there were quite a lot of people voting 9 ones and 1 10. And I made a point that this was not desired behavior, that we want to see more nuanced and less strategic voting. And actually, I think that worked because right now you saw much less extreme behavior like that. People are more aware of that. I also warned them a little bit that we might be having kind of a wallet reputation implemented, which we didn't yet due to various reasons. But what we can see is that people are voting more nuanced over the whole spectrum between 1 and 10. Of course, there were also 1s and there were 10s, which is also fine. There's no problem with that, but less extreme than last time. And now about this whale, there was one whale. Rojo, you have your hand. I'll let you first.
Basically, I want to answer Curtis as well. So in this table, what we actually see for the pool C are the average grades. And that's not necessarily affected by the number of voters, but rather what these have voted, like the average that they have voted. So even if we say that people from pool A and pool B kind of somehow didn't vote for pool C, that doesn't work because what we see is the average grades there that people voted. And people from pool A and pool B that we might assume have more AGIX have no incentive to kind of vote lower for pool C because it's disjoint from their budget.
Yeah, that's why I think it's more the case of it's a different kind of proposal. So for instance, if you're trying, if the rating, if you're a voter and you're thinking like which project is going to have the most impact on SingularityNET, well, the ones from pool A are kind of designed to be high impact, whereas the ones from pool C are designed to be kind of riskier, further out, lower chance of it actually having an impact unless it turns out to be a big payoff, you know. So these were supposed to be riskier proposals, but maybe as riskier proposals, they all got lower grades.
Yeah, so the question here would be, will we lower our threshold, saying an ideation proposal with a 6 is also a good proposal? Or will we educate the community saying, well, listen, these are projects in the ideation phase. You have to treat them like that. So I don't know what the best way would be there, but yeah, maybe this is a very interesting one for the governance round to ask people in general if we should have different thresholds for different pools. Rojo?
Also, just a small perspective from Catalyst is that what we noticed from Catalyst is that projects that are semi-implemented or have already implemented like an MVP on that people can see and use usually had much higher, let's say, PA ratings and also higher vote rates. Especially if they already have a project and they want to extend, then they just always get like very high votings and they're always on top of the list. It makes sense, as Kenrick said.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But still, the question how to go about pool C. I can also imagine that there's something about the conditions and the format that we can improve, that we have to change it in a way that these projects become more attractive. I tried to make it quite concrete with milestones and things to deliver, etc. But maybe we have to revisit that as well.
I would echo those references to the lessons from Catalyst. It could be each pool has its kind of own culture, so it will attract different interests and different voting behaviour. So that change in voting behaviour may determine the governance as we go forward. So it may mean you need to quantify, well, basically communicate what that pool is about, what people are voting for, and obviously you need to stop short of guiding people how to vote, but to maybe more to clarify what are they voting for, what is the meaning of the voting in that pool. Yeah,
so the big question always is why do people vote, how they vote, right? It's just one dimensional. We see a grade, but we don't know what people are thinking when they're voting. So maybe they think all this stuff is a complete waste of the treasury. And maybe they think people should just pay for their own ideation and we shouldn't do it. Or maybe they just didn't like the projects, I don't know. Or maybe they thought a 6 is also a very good number for a project like that. But yeah, interesting. But let me show you. We have visualized this, almost forgot it. But thanks to Robert Haas, who did this every time. Now, there's a disclaimer here. So these are the results from Pool A. So here you see the awarded projects of Pool A. And you see who is voting and you see who is not voting. So that gives immediately a good idea of how many people are voting. The purple dots or pink dots are the ones that have reputation value, added reputation value. But the disclaimer is that what Robert did here is base this top row. So these bullets at the top represent wallets with the balance. And it is ordered by AGIX balance and not by voting weight. So not quadratic and not with reputation calculated in there. So these pink dots here will probably move to the right if we would add that to it. But he didn't have time to do that anymore. So this is Pool A. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, so at the top you see all the wallets, at the bottom you see all the projects in Pool A, and this way you can see which wallets voted for this project, and the color of the lines is relative to the grade given. So red, dark red is a 1, dark green is a 10, and orange or light green would be something in between. Vice versa, you can also see from this wallet what the voting behavior was. Now, what we did on purpose here, and that's also a discussion topic for next time maybe, we removed the wallet address. Probably, no, you won't be able to see it. I don't know if we need to be transparent in that. The reason that I'm not doing it is because we also want to connect reputation to a wallet, and reputation might at some point be relatable to an ID, an actual ID in the portal. So at some point you might know that John, who is giving comments in the portal, is a very big or small token holder, and I'm not sure if we should make that data available by default. Maybe we can do it optionally if people want it to have published, but I'm a little bit cautious here. I'm erring on the cautious. So that is what this visual does. But let's see how that looks in Pool C. So this is Pool C.
Yeah, one short note on maybe not publishing it over long term. Also, what we can see from Catalyst, not publishing it creates a really dangerous environment. Community can't verify themselves. And people who really, let's say, for example, let's say I'm a proposer, I vote low on other projects because I consider them maybe as competitors. I know I act in a safe environment because nobody can go into and check in it. It relies on a single entity. Make it open on long term actually drives much more to security. Just on a personal note.
Yeah. It might, on the other hand, also drive people away. Might drive people away from voting, or it might drive them away from being active and engaged in the community, because somebody with a lot of tokens might not want to have that fact published in our proposal portal.
Exactly. Both solutions will push away people. The interesting question is, which people does it push away? Which people does
Well-
it push away when you keep it private? Which people does it push away when you make
Very
it open?
interesting question. Yeah, very interesting question. So the whales might still go on voting, but if they are not on our proposal portal, they will not get reputation, which would mean their vote would be diluted. So yeah, the question is that a bad thing or not? Kenrick.
That's all. I was just going to amplify that. So identity is probably the most difficult and complicated issue because you need both some kind of peer-to-peer identification system for security, particularly with quadratic voting. But at the same time, people do have a right for their identity to be protected. And if you know, permissionlessness is one of the values that's kind of considered important in these cryptocurrency communities. So it's a delicate balance between the two.
Yeah. So what I like about our approach so far is that we don't need to do any KYC, but we can get a consistent reputation over time by connecting it to somebody's wallet. So a whale could have a large wallet and could have an avatar or an ID on the proposal portal, but you would still have no idea who is behind that.
Dan, we need you involved in Cardano's SIP 1694 discussions.
That would be interesting. I have a comment on that too as well, but I'll leave it to the end of this meeting. By the way, we're already way in time, I see. So we are not going to finish all the topics that I thought we might discuss, but that's no problem at all. We'll do that next time, and there's a lot of interesting stuff still to be discussed. But let me tell you this story about the whale. There's one whale, obviously he is at the right, and this is how he voted, or she, I don't know. But you see, this person or this collection ID had between 10 and 100 million AGIX. I think it was 14 million in total, and they had 4 or 5 wallets connected. This is huge. And it wasn't a wallet from the foundation or anything. Also, for those interested, I didn't vote either with my personal wallet. Not that I would have this amount. So there seems to be some suspicious behavior there behind it. We could investigate further what happened, but if I look at the outcome, what this person voted for, it's actually quite nuanced. It's not like 9 ones and 1 10. It did give a 9, 1 9 to this project. Does that mean that this wallet belongs or is related to this project? I don't know. If they were related to the project, to be honest, they would still not be doing anything wrong. I mean, ethically, it might be undesired, but it's not fraud. It's not something we would penalize. We would try to create other rules and conditions to counter this kind of behavior, like we are doing with quadratic voting. And as you mentioned, Kenrick, you indeed see that quadratic voting made the outcome quite different and made in this case, at least, the impact of that one whale less impactful.
It's a very significant.
That quadratic voting was in the end not related whether this was a good or not a good project. That's not that important. But I did think it fulfilled its purpose, so I'm happy with that part.
Yeah, and the only thing else I'd say is that over time, someone like that is going to learn that the impact they thought they were going to have didn't result, and they will split their wallet. You know, because that can happen. So, but the point is, you can start with quadratic voting as you've done, and then over time, build in stronger security measures to improve it. But you've already got substantial improvement in your outcome.
So what we can do to counter wallet splitting, what I mentioned, is making sure that reputation is becoming more and more important. That's the most important thing. Another thing we can do is to create a kind of wallet reputation. So if we would see in this wallet a huge inflow of AGIX before the voting round and a huge outflow after the voting round, then we could impact the weight of this wallet, the voting weight, by means of a wallet reputation. If we would see that some wallets would have very extreme voting behavior, we could also say, well, you can still vote, it will still count, but a little bit less than it would otherwise. So those are other measures we can put in place. And that's basically what I like about the whole reputation thing. We can have a wallet reputation, we can have portal reputation, maybe there are other reputations, and there are a lot of things we can tweak and we can change to ensure that we always have a balanced outcome. Rojo.
Yeah, I just wanted to add something. These ideas about how the reputation might be tweaked and, like, let's say, requirements for it, or the way how these numbers would change. It might, if it's not open source, then it's public. It might be a little bit. It might seem like a foundation side or SingularityNET side is kind of interfering with the kind of an election, the voting, basically. So if such tweaks are to be made, it ought to be public and open source and openly verified by everyone. So if I get less numbers, well, I know why. It's because of this requirement and this requirement.
Yeah. So I can show you this screen again. Here are some variables that we created. Our approach until now is that since this is still a little bit experimental, we need to have a foundation to work on. Our current approach is that we take the initiative at some point to do something. It's completely centralized, you're right. But we are very transparent, completely transparent afterwards, and we explain what has been done and how these outcomes come about. And then we can have a discussion on it for the next round. Is this the best way, or should it be different? For instance, this is the weight factor I give to tiers of people with a certain reputation. And you can see the highest percentile, which is just 4% or 5% of the people, will get a real high weight. But these are the few people on the proposal platform that are really valuable, that are looking at every proposal, that have valuable feedback on every proposal. And I think they deserve a high voting upgrade. And well, you see the others also, we don't have to go into detail here right now. But I can imagine that this is open for discussion for the next round, where the community can give input and say, well, we should have the weights twice as much, or only the half, or 2 should be the maximum, or whatever. And we should continue to balance that against other things like wallet splitting, etc. So yeah, you can see that this could be quite impactful. So if we would have had more people on the proposal portal with a higher reputation, identifiable in their voting, in the voting portal, yeah, that might have led to some other outcomes here. But we're transparent. We tried it out now first. We have to start somewhere. I do imagine, and so what I imagine that in the next round we'll be discussing it. My mid to long-term expectation is that this will become more and more matured. And when we get at a stage that we feel together, all of us, that this is at a stage where it's stable, then we can get into a procedure where changing these variables would require a vote. Or we would have a certain committee who would be in charge of that will be elected by the community. That's another way. So the further we mature, the higher level of decentralization we can put in this. And while we mature, the goal is also to have a more matured community with reputation-based engagement and contributions, so that we know that the people who are voting on this are also reliable and are not people who want to game the system. And if we would keep this, make this completely open right now for a community vote and say, you tell us what variables you want to have, then that same whale or another whale would come in, buy 20 million AGIX and could completely change this. So until we are a little bit on a safer ground, we want to do this step by step and gradually make this more community driven and decentralized. But we are always completely transparent on what the calculations were and how we got to these outcomes. All right. I will one of these days, when I have time, create a blog on this, and maybe it might have a little bit more detail than what I was able to tell you tonight. These wonderful graphs of Robert will also be integrated there. Once again, this is based on the balance and not on the voting weight. So it's not completely right, but you can also already very clearly see that in pool A there was more engagement. There were fewer people that didn't vote than, for instance, in pool C, where there are more empty spots. And this is pool B. Actually, there are a lot of empty spots here as well. So a lot of people that were not interested in these existing services. And this is marketing, also a lot of empty spots here. So that's interesting, right? So I think, pool A, it also has the most projects, I think. So it might be a little bit also the view, but I think here are, it seems like there's the most engagement also in pool A. So coming back to what we can discuss next time in a little bit more depth. So right now we talked about the outcomes, we talked about the whale, we talked about quadratic voting and so on. What I did mention a few times in the town halls is the back-end processes that we're having. We did an experiment with peer reviews. We did an experiment with eligibility reviews. Both were above my expectations, so I'm very happy with what happened. Weren't perfect either, but I really want to increase this in the next round, led by Rafael. So yeah, I'm having high expectations on this, but we should discuss together what you guys also think was going well, what you guys think could be better, and I'll give my own perspective on that as well. And other topic to discuss is we have 5 pools, where in Deep Funding round 1 we only had 1. We already discussed this to some extent, which pools were more successful than others, like pool C, but also pool B I think is interesting. So this is also a very interesting topic, I think, or a domain for our new governance round. We haven't set a date yet for the new governance round, but yeah, I think we can open that rather quickly and just see what suggestions will come in from the community. And in the meantime, we can still continue to discuss that. So in the next, I can already subscribe, or maybe Raphael would lead it next time, I don't know, for a breakout room in the next session. And then last but not least, let me just make this comment. I showed you already around on our new or renewed website. We're continuously improving. We have more plans there in the future. There's some things that are also a little bit more substantial, so that might take a little bit more time. One other thing that I won't get into details right now, but I feel that I do need to mention it at least, is that we are working on organizing a decentralization summit around SingularityNET, not just Deep Funding. It will have a number of speakers. It will also be a kickoff event for further decentralization within SingularityNET Foundation. Deep funding will be a large part of that. Also, the processes that we're experimenting with and learning about will be important ingredient for this decentralization. But we will continue to experiment and learn and show you that we are very determined in decentralizing this organization. We think it's necessary to do that for all kinds of reasons. And the happy news is that we will start by organizing a summit and showing our intentions and our ideas around that in more detail and having discussions about that. And after that summit, there will be more discussions about it with you, with the community, and looking forward to talk about all kinds of topics around decentralization. And more to come. The date that we are targeting right now, you can pencil it in your agenda. It's not completely set in stone yet, but it will most likely be April 21st. So are you okay, Peter, that I blurted this out?
Yeah, sure. I was not concretely mentioning it in chat, just saying it will be this month. But yeah, it's locked in enough, sure.
Yeah, so it might still change, but I would say the chances that it will stay 21st of April are at least 80%. All right, Raphael, sorry that I took all the stage this time, but the spreadsheet was still most of my history. Next time, I hope I will be able to hand it over and you will have a larger part also in the calculations. As far as we can't rely yet on the contribution tool, but I'm not sure if we will be that fast with that tool. Maybe we'll, especially for the governance round, it won't be ready yet. And then, of course, you're only here for 2 weeks yet, so I will give you some time to land and to onboard. There's already a lot to learn, but with this new round and the new teams, you're completely at top, and I'm sure that you're better involved than I will be a couple of weeks from now on, and then you can completely take the lead. Anything you would like to add right now to this?
No, glad you took the lead here, Jan, with all the tables and etc. But of course, it's very interesting to learn from this process as well, and always looking for improvements, as the feedback we received from the community was very important to read and hear. Sometimes you were speaking there, but I was reading the comments and trying to answer people as well. And again, it's a learning process. That's the beauty of decentralization. Definitely, everybody is able to contribute.
Yeah, Jan, thanks for all the great information and all the data, and I know a lot of the materials like you produced very quickly. Just could we get the materials so we can archive them? I mean, what I'm thinking from previous experiences is that you don't always know what's important in the future. Okay, so it's good to start setting, even if it's not fully formed, try and get it out there so the community can archive it, and then we can look back and see how great we were here or how not great we are here.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So that is also the reason why we are creating this. Let me share once more. This news hub on our Deep Funding site with also all governance meetings. So all the meetings that I had in the past with a number of you here, but usually not as big a group as current, will stay here. And it's not because I think there will be a lot of people rewatching all this material. It probably will be very boring, but for exactly the reasons that you were just mentioning, for transparency and for anybody to be able to look back and search back and see what was said before, etc. Maybe we need to think about how to add things like the calculation sheet here. By the way, we also have the blogs here. So this is the blog with the results on deep funding. And if I open it, you can, well, you see here the winning projects. But here is also the link to the results sheet. So that is something you already have out in the open. And regarding the whole calculation sheet, I shared it here with Joanna because she is also working on the contribution tool, so it makes sense. I also shared it with Robert Haas because he was making those graphics that I showed you before. I think we can discuss whether in the next round we should be completely transparent in all the addresses who vote, etc. I think that's an extremely interesting and also important discussion. And I think we should put that up for a vote in our governance round, probably. But I'm not 100% comfortable to do that now after the fact without informing people beforehand that we were going to do that. On the other hand, so what I could do is flatten the whole sheet and then remove the addresses because everything is interlinked in that sheet. So if I remove the addresses, then everything will fall apart. So I would need to flatten the whole thing. So that's one thing I can do that would make it hard for you to recalculate to see what I actually did if all the formulas are out there. But yeah, if it adds some value, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, that could be really useful. I'm just thinking in terms of like, if you imagine this whole thing as a research project and, so all the materials that we can have and we can possibly use later on, great. If you need to flatten things out to protect sources or because, we need to be responsible for terms and conditions, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not as simple as just flatten out or removing the wallet addresses, because if I do that, there will be no number left in the sheet because it's all lookup tables, and if this is the same number as that, then what is the value here? And this is the reason why I'm so happy with that contribution scoring proposal, because I don't want to keep on doing that in a spreadsheet. It's getting more and more complex, and yeah, there's more and more room for errors. I think we're safe for errors now, but yeah. So I can, if I flatten it, and I have to flatten every tab on the sheet, you can still see what is there, but it's hard to. And Joanna, Joanna's still here? No, I don't think so.
No.
I gave her once a flattened sheet for the same reason, because I was careful about privacy, and yeah, it was hard to make it give it any meaning, basically. But what I can do also is give you at least the tab with the variables, for instance, and that is very. I will do that. I will do that. So I will make another block. I will add that sheet with the variables. I will add the sheet with the votes. I will give some more insight. I can make the whole flattened sheet. I don't know if it makes sense. Maybe there's some other things that I think that might be particularly valuable. Yeah, let's see. So the aim is to be as transparent as possible while being respectful for people's privacy at this stage. All right. I promised, or I was hoping for an interactive session. It was, at least to a certain extent. I expected the most interaction in parts where we didn't really get round to. Although we already talked about the pools and stuff. So I would like to thank you for all your input and your ideas. I really appreciate that. And I hope in the next town hall we'll have a new breakout room on this topic and continue to do so. And I hope to see as many people there as possible. The more, the better, not just the merrier, but also the better. Any last questions, remarks from anybody?
Yeah, last note, thanks a lot for everybody, by the way, who voted on this proposal as well, in which you participate right now, which was the establishment of the Deep Funding Town Hall, which makes this now a funded proposal. Massive shout out as well to Fly and Roger, who take a lot of engagement to move this forward. Both of them also part of the SingularityET Ambassadors program. And yeah, if you have any suggestions for improvement, critics, or whatnot, reach out to us. You find us on SingularityNET Discord. I'm Felix. That's Fly and Roger. You can find us on Discord channels. We are open to everything. We appreciate critics even more than compliments because we want to improve. And if you have any ideas, reach out to us. And yeah, let's build this together. And once again, thanks a lot, everybody.